You were not meant to be a slave to the grind. You were not meant to trade your life force for money. You can escape gravity. You can unlock your life. You got this. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to Unlock Your Life. This is your host, Jennings Smith. Appreciate you being here today because our most valuable asset is time. And so I enjoy spending a little bit of time with you today. Guys, I'm going to be a bit vulnerable. I'm going to talk to you about a deal that I did that really was not my best deal. Might even be considered one of the worst deals I've ever done. And I think it's important because a lot of times you hear the wins, you hear everything that's just going great, going awesome, and you don't hear about the downside. You don't hear about the risks, and you don't hear about the mistakes so that you could protect yourself and maybe learn from some of my mistakes. So I'm going to tell you about a deal that we just sold. So we bought this thing and sold it about a year later, and how it went. So we bought a property. It was 70 units in Clemson, South Carolina. 70 units in Clemson. It was not student housing. There were some students there, but it was mostly people that lived and worked on campus or around campus. I'm a Clemson graduate, so it was a little bit of a, soft-hearted deal for me. I wanted to buy something in the town of my alma mater, and it was a good deal. We bought it for about $4 million, and there was another $800,000 or $900,000 renovation. There was quite a bit of carrying costs associated with this deal. We had to raise about $1.5 million to close it. So we went to 15 different individuals, and they gave us around $100,000 a piece. And we bought the deal, and the structure was the investors got a 10% preferred return. So a preferred return means they get the first 10% of the profit out of the deal before anybody else gets paid. Okay, so then after that, then we split the profits. And I think this one was 30% to the investors, 70% to the general partners. But that's after they get the first 10% of the profits on the deal. The other nice thing about this is we were supposed to renovate or refinance this deal in 18 months to 24 months. So within a year and a half to 2 years, the investors were going to get all their money back, plus their 10% that they had made on the deal, right? The preferred return. Plus, we still retained and owned the property, and they would get a piece of the cash flow. They'd get 30% of the cash flow forever. And whenever we sold it, they would get 30% of the profits, even though they had no risk in the deal. They didn't take the loan. They weren't managing or doing anything, but they had utilized their capital that one time for 18 to 24 months. And that's the kind of way we had structured this deal. So when you do deals like this, only certain types fit this model, right? This is called the BRRRR model, where you buy, renovate, rent it out, typically at higher rents, and then you refinance it. You refinance all the capital back out of the deal. So there has to be a value add component to do a deal like this. Value add component meaning you can raise the rents, or you can do renovations to make the property more, or you can add storage like garages. Any way you can increase the bottom line or cut expenses is a value add property. So if there's enough value add, then you can refinance it in 1 to 2 years and get all the down payment back out. And then you can reuse that down payment to buy your next property. So it's a really powerful strategy if you can find a property that fits this model. And so we thought we had found something like this, but these models are the knife cuts both ways. The knife cuts both ways in a deal like this, because if you take your time, if you miss your projections, then the preferred return continues to accrue, right? You're taking on something that's distressed. Typically, there's not a lot of cash flow in the beginning because maybe it's a building that's got vacancy. Maybe the rents are really low and you're just not collecting enough to cover your costs. And so what happened on this deal to make it go wrong, right? Because this is a deal that did not go real well for us. The first mistake we made was we took a really aggressive loan. So we took a loan that was interest only, 7%. In today's time, doesn't seem so bad. And they loaned you all of your first 10 months of payments into the loan, right? So you didn't have to make any payments for 10 months, or that's kind of how it was presented to us anyhow. And so they're charging you interest on the money that you aren't paying necessarily because they've escrowed it. and they loan you some renovation funds. But as we got into this deal, there was a lot of, fine print or things that we just really didn't see how they were going to totally impact it until we got in. One, there was a construction management fee of $1,500 a month. There was a loan management fee of $750 a month, just a loan management fee and a construction management fee. This was definitely not something that we had uncovered in the loan documents. Now that's our own fault, not saying, but when you get a 50-page document, sometimes you miss stuff, and we definitely missed this salient detail. And so now we're paying about $22.50 a month more than we had anticipated right out of the gate. Secondly, we hired a contractor, and the contractor went over budget. I mean, we had some roof issues, we had some parking lot issues, we had some siding issues, and our management company said, this contractor is taking too long. They're taking too much money to do this stuff. Why don't you fire this contractor? We'll bring the construction in-house, which we had done with this company before. So we lost a few months messing around with the first contractor, and we got the second contractor, which was associated with the management company, on board. So contractor 2 starts up and runs into a lot of the similar issues, going over budget, things taking longer, and we're also in the middle of COVID. There's supply chain issues, there are labor issues, labor shortages, and there's also slow pays on rent. You really can't evict people right now. And so this stuff was starting to kind of snowball along with a really aggressive loan. And I thought last December, so if you're listening to this now, it's November. So about 11 months ago, I realized we got a problem. We don't have a clear path to get these rents and renovations done. We're running out of money. We're going over budget. We don't have a clear path to refinance this property, and we need to pivot. We need to do something different, because if we don't, we might could get to the end of this loan and not be able to refinance. We might not be able to sell it for even what we have into it. And if we get jammed up and we can't refinance and we're paying crazy interest on this loan, it's not going to be good. So back in December, I started to really get focused on this. And I want to say I freaked out, but I really didn't freak out, more so than just look, let's take this scenario out 8 months. And let's see when this grace period where we're not having to pay any payments is over, and we see our payments jump up by $35,000 a month, we've got to really, really make progress, and we cannot miss a step. Okay. And so we're pushing on the management company, pushing with the contractor to get this stuff done. And they are making some progress, but in, May or so, I realized that it's just really not going as quickly and as fast as I needed to. So I hired a consultant to look into this property and to look into other properties across my portfolio. And in uncovering that, we decided, let's switch management companies. Let's switch management companies and contractors. This team is just not getting it done. And I'm not really going to go into all that as to why we switched and what that entailed. But we did make the decision to switch. And so when you switch management companies, that also is a delay, right? That's going to run down on your time. You're switching contractors again and just kind of compounding it. Now add on to this, you've got rates raising. Interest rates are rising now, 75 basis points every month, it seems like. And so once again, in the fine print of this loan, the rate we have is adjustable. So now our 7% rate is not 7%. Now it's 7 3/4. Now it's 8 1/4. Now it's 8 1/2. Now it's 9. Moved all the way up to 9%. And every month our payment is just going up as the Federal Reserve continues to raise rates. So we ended up getting an offer for $5.5 million. And if you think about this, you think, oh, well, they bought it for $4 million. They put $800,000 in. They're in for $4.8 million. They sell it for $5.5 million. That's not so bad. They're going to make $700,000. Not exactly. Because remember, you have carrying costs. You have closing costs initially to close it. You have brokerage commissions. There's $300,000 in brokerage commissions. But also, this lender had prepayment penalties. We had to pay out all the interest that we owed because we didn't keep the loan for the full 2 years. And we sold it a year early. And so at the end of the day, we were actually going to lose money, not even counting the 10% preferred return we were supposed to return to our investors. Okay. So I'm looking at all this back in December and I make the call. We've got to stop paying out this preferred return because we had been sending the preferred return out monthly to our investors. And it was not something I wanted to do. No investor wants to hear that we're stopping payments to you. Now the payment still accrues, still is going against our equity, right, towards the investor. It's not disappearing, but it's not going in their bank account every month. And so they don't like that. You wouldn't like that, I'm sure. And the only alternative, though, was to maybe not pay bills, not pay our mortgage, not pay our tax bills, not pay our vendors, or raise more money at more interest and put more risk on the deal. And so I made the decision, which was a hard decision, to stop the preferred return, even though I knew it wasn't going to be popular, and it definitely bruised my ego. And this is the first time I've really even talked about it publicly, because as a real estate guy, you always want to be, yeah, we don't have any problems. Everything goes well. We have great instincts. We're so conservative. Nothing ever goes wrong. And that's this persona that a lot of people put out, right? But we all know that we're all human. We all make mistakes. And how do you overcome those mistakes? How do you pivot? What do you do when the chips are down? So the chips were down on this deal. So we pivoted with the management company, and we went under contract. This group had us under contract for about 30 days. And after 30 days, their money was going to go hard, right? Go hard means that you put down $50,000, $100,000 in earnest money. And after a certain period of time, if you back out of that deal, you don't get your earnest money back. You lose the money, right? And that makes them have skin in the game for tying our property up and not selling it to somebody else. They are going to lose something if they don't close. And so when that period was about to expire, where they could walk away from the deal and get their money back, they come to us and they say, well, we need $500,000 off. Well, at $5.5 million, we were already going to not be able to pay any preferred return to the investors, and we were going to have to kick in some of our own money to close this deal. Now, we had negotiated a reduced commission with the broker. We had reduced the prepayment penalties with the lender. We had already tried to make this $5.5 million deal work, and it worked by the skin of our teeth. And I think the general partners would have had to kick in money to even get everybody all their money back. So a $500,000 reduction was really just off the table. And we said, no, we're not retrading at all. We're not reducing the price at all. And they walked. Now we're back on the market. However, we had a backup buyer. There was a buyer that had been very interested, and they came in with a $6.1 million offer. So an offer of $600,000 greater. So great offer. And this group was willing to put down $75,000 non-refundable after 45 days with another 45 days to close. So we took the $75,000, it goes into the lawyer's escrow account, and we let them go into due diligence. At this point, we've hired the new management company, and we've been about 80% full, 78 to 80% full for almost a year, and had not been able to break through that level. And in real estate and in multifamily especially, your occupancy and your cash flow drives the value of your building. So we're pushing on our new manager, and they're doing a great job. They're filling the property up. They're getting the leases signed. They're moving the people in. And we come to the end of the 45-day due diligence period, where the buyer comes to us and says, what we have been waiting for and what we've been afraid of, hey, we want a $450,000 reduction in price. And you could say, well, you're still going to break even. Not really, because at this point we've incurred more costs. We've dumped more money into this. We've put more into the renovations, and we really can't take a haircut like that. We could take a little bit of a haircut, but we couldn't take that much of a haircut. However, we really want these people to close because we want to get this deal off of our plate. Like, we don't see a clear path to refinance, and we're going to be tying up our investors' money for a long, long time if we don't take this deal. So I pulled out my negotiating skills and I went to work, and we went back and forth over and over. And I mean, I made everybody mad. I made the buyers mad. I made my partners mad. I made the broker mad, but really we stuck to our guns and we ended up settling on $153,000 credit. So we came down on our price, $153,000, and they came from $450 to $153. So it was a pretty big win for the team at that point because we could still sell the property and be profitable. Okay, so now the money goes hard. One of the stipulations that we had negotiated was not only did we give them $153,000 credit, we guaranteed that we would have the property 90% occupied. So 90% occupancy via leases. Said that right in the addendum, 90% occupancy via leases. What that means is we've got 90% occupancy by leases signed. So they didn't necessarily have to be living there, but they were moving in November or they were moving into December. And we cleared that with the seller and the seller's bank. They said, yeah, as long as they move in by December, that's fine. Well, just wait, because apparently that wasn't fine. So we go under contract. The money goes hard. Now we've got them, right? We've got $75,000. I mean, remember, it's with the attorney. But if they back out of this deal, then they're going to lose $75,000 as long as we get it to 90% occupancy. So we're pushing along. We're answering their questions. We're finishing up our renovations and we're getting leases signed. And we're to the point now where we have 59 out of 70 are occupied. Someone's living there. And then we have 3 more leases that are signed. They're moving in. And we just need 1 more lease, which would put us at 63 out of 70. That's 90% occupancy. And the buyer comes back with another retrade. Retrade meaning they want more money off. And this is literally the day before we're supposed to close. And they come to us and say, listen, our lender jacked up our rate. Our lender isn't honoring the rate that he told us. And it's going to cost us, $250,000 more in interest. And you have to pay that because you didn't get the property to 90%. You say, whoa. What do you mean we didn't get the property to 90%? We only got 1 more lease and we're going to sign that today or tomorrow. And our contract has until the end of the week. Like, we're going to hit the 90%. It's not our fault. They say, well, we don't care. If you don't do it, then we want our $250,000 off this property. And if you don't do it, then we're going to walk. We're going to walk and leave you high and dry. And I said, well, fine, go ahead. I'm going to keep your $75,000 because we're going to bring it to 90% occupancy. And we did what we said we were going to do. And you're backing out. And I'm not giving you $250,000 off. I'm sorry about the Fed. I'm sorry about the banks. That's not my problem. That's not my fault. Well, there's 2 sides to every argument. We all know that, right? And how they see it was different than how I saw it. How they saw it was we didn't get it to 90% because it wasn't 90% occupied. And that's why the bank wouldn't honor the loan. The real reason, though, is because the bank wanted a higher rate. That's the real reason. The bank was looking for any excuse. They had quoted them too low of a rate. The rates had gone up and they needed to raise the rate on their borrower. And they were just using me as a scapegoat because we had the lender agree to leases, that it didn't have to be physically occupied. But whatever, because now we're looking at, we either negotiate with these guys or we walk. And if we walk, they're going to argue that they should get that $75,000. And we're going to argue that we should get the $75,000. And we're going to have to hire lawyers and we're going to have to sue each other. And it's going to turn into a big, long, drawn out mess, like a year-long deal to get this money. Plus, we really haven't solved our problem of selling Clemson, which is what we really want to do. But if we took this reduction, we're now looking at bringing money to the deal, not making any money, but bringing money to pay our investors off. And we really didn't want to do that. So we went back and forth, and the sellers conceded to come down to $125,000 off. And I was like, no, absolutely not. I had offered them $50,000. They said no. I mean, they came down to $125,000, but we're still a good ways off, $75,000 off. And it really looked like this deal was going to die. I felt like I had an airtight case to get that $75,000, but apparently they thought they could get the money too. And like I said, it was going to be drawn out and still not close the deal. And so the broker calls me, and I can be hard-headed sometimes. The broker calls me and he offers to reduce his commission by $25,000. And the other side of the broker reduced his commission $25,000 as well. So they're dropping it 50 grand. All I got to do is come up $25,000 more. So basically take 75K off the purchase price again. And we've got a deal. So I spoke with the team and we all agreed and we got it closed. I think the next day we signed all the documents and the bank funded and we got it closed. And at the end of the day, we walked away with getting all the investors their money back, clearing off our bills, and returning the investors maybe like a 5 or 6% preferred return. So they made a little bit of money on the deal, and their money was only tied up for a little over a year. So not a whole long drawn out process. But at the same time, it was a super stressful period. I had to stop the preferred return. My pro forma, I was telling the investors they were going to make 15 to 20%. I missed that by a long shot. And in some cases, you could say this was a failure. But, you got to think about what happened, what transpired. I'm dealing with multiple contractor issues. I'm dealing with COVID. I'm dealing with supply chain issues. I'm dealing with crazy escalating prices. I'm dealing with the Fed raising rates 75 basis points every month. I'm dealing with occupancy issues. I'm dealing with switching management companies. And so we fought through all of that and ended up returning the money and a small profit. And after the deal was closed, we had a Zoom call with all the investors. So I invited all the investors to jump on a Zoom call with me and Yaden, my partner, and my cousin. And we were going to break down the deal. And we told them, everything that happened. And we had been communicating with them all along just so they could ask questions. And we got a positive response from every single one of those investors. Every single one of those investors, they still like us. They still trust us. And they saw how we reacted when the chips were down, when our backs were against the wall, and how we didn't bury our head in the sand. We didn't give up. We didn't get stressed out and stop taking their calls and stop communicating with them. We kept putting one foot in front of the other. And the end result was not what we wanted, not what they wanted necessarily, but it wasn't a horrible outcome either. Could have been a lot worse. And we lived to fight another day. They've got their capital back in their bank accounts. And if they want to place it back with me, they can. If they want to place it with another deal, or they want to just leave it in the bank account. But it's safely there. And that's one of the main rules of investing. Don't lose money. It's really important to preserve that capital and not lose money. And it's really important to be transparent with your audience, with people that are listening to you out there teaching and telling them this is how you do it, and to show them the stuff that doesn't always go the way you hoped it was going to go, to show them the downside, to show them the negative, the white underbelly of the way that things can go. It's not all butterflies and unicorns and Lamborghinis and yachts. It's hard, nitty-gritty work sometimes, and pushing through that and laying your ego aside. So I wanted to tell you guys this story of our Clemson deal, and we did end up escaping it by the skin of our teeth and returned the money. We returned a little bit of profit. And it's taken a lot of load off my mind, because the other option we had would have been to keep it and hold it for a few more years, refinance it or sell it. And I think that, we would have been okay doing that too, but I don't know that we would have returned much more than just the investors' capital, even if we kept going. And I didn't want to tie that money up for them. So that was the executive decision we made as a team, was to let's just take the price, close it, and move forward and close them in and get them into a better deal. So hopefully that story resonates with you, and it gives you a little bit of insight into the inner workings of how some of these deals really, really go down, and those conversations that happen in the boardrooms behind closed doors when you're losing $10,000 a month and you're having to have capital calls and the general partners are having to chip money in, and you can't pay the preferred return like you had hoped to do with your investors. And what do you do in a situation like that? And you just got to keep swinging. What's the next right thing? What's the next best thing? What's something that I can do to regain control of this situation and put myself in a best light, in the best situation, in the best way to get this money back to the investors? That's what I got for you guys today. I appreciate you. If you enjoyed this show, I'd love to see your review. I'd love to see your review on Apple or iTunes or wherever you listen to the podcast. Shoot me a message. Tell me you're listening. It means a lot to me. I know there's a lot of people listening. We're getting I think 2,000 downloads a week now on this podcast, which is really cool. And you're a part of that. And I appreciate you being here. So if I can help you in any way, reach out to me and don't forget to unlock your life. Thanks.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.